Man, guys, we got to get right off into this, man. Welcome to another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. Man, Stephen A. Smith and Michelle Beadle's feud is heating up. Things are getting nasty. Now, Michelle Beadle, recently, she just lost her job on Sirius XM radio. And it's a long, drawn out beef between Michelle Beadle and Stephen A. Smith. Michelle Beadle really don't care too much for Stephen A. Smith. It's been a lot of things that's been transpiring with their relationship over the years, ever since she's been on ESPN. And her and Stephen A. Smith have been constantly going back and forth in a little feud that now is heating up. And now Michelle Beadle, she's fighting back. And she has blasted Stephen A. Smith and basically calling Stephen A. Smith a worthless piece of you know what. So what's happened? Stephen A. Smith, the way Stephen A. Smith does, sometimes he be petty. And Stephen A. Smith went on the Howard Stern show and he announced one of his new gigs. And that affected Michelle Beadle because Stephen A. Smith replaced Michelle Beadle at Sirius XM. Now, it's been a lot of back and forth between them two over the years on a lot of situations, and Michelle Beadle just couldn't take it no more after this latest episode with her losing her job to Stephen A. Smith. And we all know Michelle Beadle, she runs a podcast with Chandler Parsons and Lou Williams called, I think it's the Run It Up podcast or Run It Back podcast. And they talk sports and things like that. But Michelle Beadle is out of a major gig and she's just relegated to doing her podcast. So Stephen A. Smith went on the Howard Stern show and he made an announcement. So let's take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith announced on the Howard Stern show.
September 2nd, I return to Sirius XM with my own show, the Stephen A. Smith Show. I'm coming back to Sirius XM. I'll be on Mad Dog. I'll be on Mad Dog Sports Radio, leading into Mad Dog 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every weekday. Mad Dog comes on 3 to 6, and then the re-air of my show from 6 to 8 follows his show as well. So you'll hear me on Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio, and I'm also having my own political show, social commentary, call it whatever you want, on or likely on POTUS, on the POTUS channel once a
Sirius
week.
XM?
Starting that's on Sirius XM, the POTUS channel,
And
Sirius XM.
Is this a multi-year deal with Sirius
Yes, it is.
XM? It is.
Yes, it is.
Is it an exclusive deal? The only place we can get Stephen A. Smith for these shows is right here at Sirius XM.
That is correct, on audio.
Look
yes,
at
sir.
this.
Now, you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. He made the announcement on the Howard Stern show. Now, listen, and let's read this article on Michelle Beadle, how she claps back at Stephen A. Smith and calls him out. Michelle Beadle on losing Sirius XM slot to Stephen A. Smith. I don't respect him. Beadle admitted that there's no love lost between her and former ESPN colleagues Smith, who will take over her weekday afternoon slot on Sirius XM radio. It's a reminder that we're all just pieces of shit to someone if you forgot. There it is. That's what a unplugged Michelle Beadle told FOS about the troubled state of sports media after learning that Stephen A. Smith was taking over her time slot on Sirius XM radio. The outspoken Beadle was surprisingly good-humored after a rough Wednesday. On one hand, she was still peeved after being blindsided by the news that Smith was taking over the Mad Dog Sports Radio time slot held by her partner, Cody Decker, for the last 2 years. On the other hand, she said it was characteristic to be able to share her side of the story immediately while communing with loyal listeners. It was sort of a therapeutic. I thought we did a pretty cool show for 2 years, she told Front Office Sports. On Wednesday morning, Smith broke the news on the Howard Stern show, which is the video that we just saw, that he was returning to Mad Dog Radio on September 2nd with 2 new shows, a weekday show from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, then will replace Beadle and Decker's program, and a weekly show covering current events, pop culture, and social commentary. Leading up to Wednesday afternoon show, Beadle says she figures she was either going to be replaced by FS1's host Danny Parkins or punished for the slamming Knicks owner James Dolan, who fired Coach Tom Thibodeau instead. She read the Smith's news in the Hollywood Reporter during her show. She joked that Thibodeau was given more of a heads up by the Knicks. The Hollywood Reporter comes out and there's his face. I was like, I should have known. This was just kind of gross. She said, I don't care that we're being replaced or what have you. It happens all the time, but a little respect would have been nice. Good Lord, I was totally blindsided. It's just really embarrassed, to be honest. Beadle admitted there's no love lost between her and Smith, going back to the Ray Rice video in 2014. At the time, Beadle ripped Smith for his controversial comments on domestic violence on First Take in the wake of Rice's violent assault on his wife. Now, wrote Beadle on X, Twitter. So I was forced to watch this morning's First Take. A, I'll never feel clean again. B, now I'm aware that I can provoke my own beating. Smith apologized and was suspended for a week. The two have been at odds ever since, according to Beadle, the former co-host of Get Up, who ended up taking a buyout from ESPN in 2019. She said blatantly, I don't respect him. I don't respect his work. He doesn't like me. This goes back to the Ray Rice stuff. He's made some really piggish comments on the air. I responded. He got suspended for like 2 weeks. I think that was sort of the beginning of the end for anything, she says. I just don't respect him. I think he gets things wrong all the time. I'm not talking about opinions. Those can never be wrong, but factually, when you spread yourself so thin, it's hard to be right. Not a fan. Now, you heard what Michelle Beadle had to say. Now, a lot of people say that Michelle Beadle is just a bitter woman, because if you go back and look at the history of Michelle Beadle, she's put claims out there that LeBron James got her fired from ESPN and takes like that. So she's real bitter about the situation. That's why she's teamed up with Lou Williams and Chandler Parson on the Run It Back podcast, because she's out of a major deal with any network. Now, Michelle Beadle was on Sirius XM, and, you know, things are starting to look ugly. Things are heating up between her and Stephen A. Smith, because basically Stephen A. Smith took her job, and that's what she is very upset about. She said it could have been anybody else but Stephen A. Smith. That's almost like throwing salt in the wound. So the back and forth between them is getting real ugly. I know Stephen A. Smith is going to respond to this, so look out for a response from Stephen A. Smith on the Stephen A. Smith show. But Michelle Beadle, she just basically called Stephen A. Smith a piece of shit, and she put Stephen A. Smith on blast. She said, I know your opinions can't be right, but factually, you're wrong all the time. I can't knock Stephen A. Smith, man, for getting to the bag. You know what I'm saying? He's getting all these jobs, getting all these deals, multi-year deals, and he's all about his money. And sometimes, Michelle Beadle, you got to take a step back, look a step in the mirror, take a look in the mirror and say, hey, you might be the problem. You know what I'm saying? If you can't hold down these jobs, you getting let go by these major corporations, that should tell you some things or two. That should let you know that you need to step your game up, because right now you're out of a job and Stephen A. Smith is replacing you in that sense. So you guys, let me know what y'all think down in the comments section, man. Is Michelle Beadle right for calling out Stephen A. Smith in this instance, just because Stephen A. Smith took over, you know, her job and she was fired from Sirius XM radio? Or do y'all think Stephen A. Smith is, you know, right in this situation, man? You know, you get a job offer, you take it. But Stephen A. Smith, man, he has dabbled in everything, and I guess he's creating this empire. So me personally, I think Michelle Beadle should look in the mirror and say, hey, it might be me. I might need to step my game up. But overall, man, she put Stephen A. Smith on blast. She called Stephen A. Smith out. I see everybody in the comments section, #salute. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. And we're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Droppin' podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.